want to teach you where you can find help in time of need, where you can understand the most important and powerful tool that is available to you as a child of God to communicate with God. It's not 911. It's a little hokey what you're going to hear me say, but it's Luke 1:1. It's Luke 11. I've known this for years. Luke 11 this is where Jesus teaches people how to pray. When I'm dry, when I'm out of gas, when I forget of this vital relationship that Jesus says I have with the Father, I know where to turn. I want you to know where to turn. Luke 1:1, Luke 11. And it is in this first couple of paragraphs that I didn't read that Jesus lays it all out. And I'm going to do my best to lay it all out to you this morning in a way that should provoke you to prayer. The interesting thing happened here at this church a couple months ago. We took a survey, and results of that survey have been studied by the staff and presented to the vestry, and this week you'll see some things come out in our e-newsletter about the survey. But let me give you a hint of what this survey said about this church. People are happy, some of them, most of them. It's a great church. It's a healthy church. There's lots going on. There were some perspectives on the programs that which the staff embraces and says, yeah, we can do better in those programs, and we will, and you'll see this in the coming years. But one thing hidden beneath the results was an understanding that this church is filled with people who are on the front end of their Christian journey. There are lots of people who are seasoned believers, seasoned members. They've been here for a long time. They've been believers for a long time. But I was so happy to see that of the people that responded to the survey, 50% of them are either new believers or they're in an active growth mode in their faith. They are embracing it, and they're moving forward in this faith. And the consultant that worked with us at these results told us that this presents a problem. You have a lot of people who believe this is a happy church. They're content, and the pews are a little too comfortable. The music is a little too perfect. The sermons are a little too short. Everybody's real happy about this. And she said, the consultant said, you have an opportunity to lead this church and present challenges to this church where people will actually grow. I was excited when I read all that. You'll see some of it this week. But I want to tell you that this could be step one for you. Those of you who are not content to just sit in a comfortable pew, but really want to exercise your faith, grow in faith, put the Lord in front of you and reach for Him, this is where you start to do that in Luke 1:1. So so let's just walk through it, and I think you'll see what I mean. And you'll see the challenge before me is to use the 25 minutes that I have to go in depth into one of the most deep and significant passages in the Scriptures. So we start here. One day Jesus was praying in a certain place. And the disciples, we don't know who it was, but one of them said to the Lord, Lord, teach us to pray. Now, this comes on the heels of many other instances where Jesus was praying. This isn't the first time. When Jesus started his ministry in Mark chapter 1, he had this incredible full day of success, miracles and teaching and demons being cast out. And then he got up early in the morning, he went to a hillside to pray, and his disciples, they looked for him in the morning. People were already gathering for the second day of miracles. They couldn't find Jesus, and they find him off in a hillside praying. They knew that there was something powerful in the way he prayed. His perspective on prayer was like none other, and they asked him to teach them to pray. We're in Luke 11. In Luke 9, there's a story of the Transfiguration where Jesus and his disciples, 3 of them, go up a mountain. And as Jesus was praying, the glory of God fell upon him. His face, his body, his clothing was all changed. It occurred as he was praying. And he goes from the height of that mountain, the miracle of the transfiguration, down into the valley where they meet a boy who was demon-possessed. And it's a pathetic scene, this little boy with his father beside him trying to keep his boy safe. This demon had come into this child, and the child would gnash his teeth and bite himself and foam and roll into the fire and rolled out of the fire. And the disciples were helpless to exorcise this demon. And Jesus comes and he casts the demon away. And the disciples pull him aside and they say, "Lord, how come we couldn't do it and you could?" And Jesus says, this kind can only be exercised with prayer. Do you see the question marks that would arise in the minds of the disciples? It's the only time in the Bible, in the New Testament, when the disciples asked Jesus to teach them anything. This great teacher, this great miracle worker, the one that could do anything, the one that could be at any level of conversation with anybody, and the only thing they ever asked him to teach them was to pray. And significant that it's not teach them how to pray. They're not interested in mechanics, techniques, special words, special incantation, magic sentences. They're not interested in that. Lord, teach us to pray. Give us some perspective on what you have when you go into a moment of prayer with the Father, which clearly changes things. Teach us that. And as I read, you see Jesus has, he says, when you pray, say, and here you have a very indexed outline of the Lord's Prayer. It's not the full one that we read about in Matthew chapter 6, not the full one that we say in a church setting like this, but it's basically the headlines. Father, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, give us each day our bread. And then he goes on, forgive us our sins. We also forgive everyone who sins against us. Lead us not into temptation. And you can, well, let's just take that portion of it right now. We're going to have to go on, but let's just take that portion of it. The disciples come to Jesus and they say, teach us to pray. And the first thing Jesus says is that when you pray, put down your lists, put down your needs and all the complaints and the challenges of life that you feel. Put those away. Because the first thing you start when you pray, the kind of prayer that I'm trying to teach you, is you start to pray about God. You pray to God about God. You say, your name is holy. Give us, it says, your kingdom come in the fuller version. Your will be done. May your name be holy. The very first thing Jesus does is tell the disciples to see things from God's perspective. Annie Dillard, in her book Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, talks about a group of French scientists that are able to reverse childhood blindness in a bunch of 20-something students in France. Through a miracle of surgery, these scientists are able to go into the eyes, to work on the eyes of these 20-somethings, and they are able to recover their sight. Children that had been blinded from birth are given their sight at age 20 or so. And she records their reaction to the sudden ability to see things clearly, see things for what they truly are. And these children, these young students, are afraid. They're very uncomfortable. They can't focus. They have no depth perception. They see things, and it just feels like it seems like a blank group of splotches. They can't see things for what they really are. And what Jesus says, first off, is I want you to get on God's side of the equation. I want you to see things the way they really are. I want you to see the world the way God sees it. I want you to see the impact of a world that has gone mad, that doesn't honor the name of God, that is full of rebellion against his kingdom, that has no more interest in God's will than anything else.
We thank you for joining us online. The ministries of Christ Church Plano are made possible by generous contributions from our members and viewers. If you have found this sermon meaningful and would like to make a gift of support, please visit christchurchplano.org/give. Thank you.